Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Munson. I am Senior Vice President of Equity and Engagement at the Estee Lauder Companies. Welcome to Rich Better Have My Money. As someone who holds deep reverence for grant makers for girls of color, I am thrilled to be joining you this evening for what's sure to be a riveting discussion. This evening, we'll be joined by Mahoro Amani, Kennedy McDaniel, Kamariah Walata, and Savanna. These are four youth leaders from the Future Lab Economy for Girls of Color who are doing incredible work in helping to create new financial systems to benefit their communities. Through the Future Lab Economy for Girls of Color Fellowship Program, these young leaders have an amazing opportunity to immerse themselves in the research and design process of co-creating new financial tools and models that pave the way for increased investments in a future where youth of color thrive and lead. Programs like G4C's Future Lab Economy are essential in advancing social progress for girls of color by creating spaces for them to be innovative and dismantling the financial systems that perpetuate the inequity impacting Black communities around the world. Because now, more than ever, it is time for new, inclusive, and equitable systems where diverse voices and experiences are prioritized. As a company that believes people are at the center of solutions for a more inclusive, diverse, and equitable world, the Estee Lauder Companies, through our charitable foundation, is proud to support the efforts of these young visionaries and the mission of grant makers for girls of color. Since 2016, the Estee Lauder Companies Charitable Foundation has partnered with organizations like G4GC to provide women and girls access to the resources, education, and skills they need to bring about lasting change for themselves, their families, and their communities. In a world where women and girls of color face systemic exclusion from opportunities for advancement, the Estee Lauder Companies and our charitable foundation feel a sense of urgency and responsibility to leverage our brand power and voice to help drive meaningful change. And we know that girls have the power to shape their own futures when positioned and supported to reach their highest potential. From bridging the funding gap through investments in organizations that drive social innovation for Black communities to increasing access for girls of color to leadership skills, the Estee Lauder Companies remains deeply committed to using our platform and products to advance representation and equity for Black communities around the world. That's why we are proud to be one of the first supporters of Grant Makers for Girls of Color's Black Girl Freedom Fund and their solutions-based efforts to cultivate and mobilize resources in support of girls of color liberation and advancement. The Black Girl Freedom Fund is filling a critical gap within the philanthropic funding space. Less than 1% of the $67 billion given by foundations go to organizations that support women and girls of color, according to a recent study by Ms. Foundation for Women. However, through funding from the Estee Lauder Companies and others, Black Girl Freedom Fund is making equity a reality. To date, they have distributed over $4 million in grants to more than 60 organizations focused on supporting personal and professional development initiatives for Black girls and gender-expansive youth. We're proud of the progress that's been made, but we do recognize that there is much more work to be done. We want to make equity a reality, and until we do, our work will not be finished. Without any further ado, I am pleased to turn it over to this evening's moderator, Solace Mensah-Narh. She's a data analyst at Grant Makers for Girls of Color for an in-depth discussion on the transformational equity building work these youth leaders are leading. Solace, over to you.
Thank you so much for that glorious introduction. Welcome, everyone, to Rich Better Have My Money, a panel conversation questioning the meaning of an abundant future for Black girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth. Panelists are members of the Future Economy Lab, where they are rethinking, dreaming, and co-creating new financial systems to benefit their communities. So first, to introduce myself, my name is Solace Mensah-Narh. My pronouns are they, them, and she, her, hers interchangeably. I am 23, and currently I'm in Washington, D.C., unceded Piscataway land, but usually I reside in Brooklyn, New York, which is unceded Lenape land. As Nicole mentioned, at Grantmakers for Girls of Color, I am data analyst with the research team, and I'm also a co-curriculum builder and staff member of the Future Economy Lab, investing in girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth of color. I am so glad we're able to have this conversation as a part of Black Girl Freedom Week's celebration of the arts, activism, and innovation of Black girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth of color. Thus far in this week, we have heard from speakers like Dr. Monique Kuvsin, the president and CEO of Grantmakers for Girls of Color, writer and director Gina Prince Bythewood, and jammed with Girls Make Beats. Today, we will be hearing from members of G4GC and Second Muse's special project, the Future Economy Lab, investing in girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth of color. So what is this lab? As Nicole mentioned, the Future Economy Lab is a participatory research and design lab that collaborates with communities to dream and imagine inclusive economic futures. In this specific lab, our purpose is to increase investments in girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth of color and their communities through a research and design process that is participatory and collaborative. We have 39 young people as fellows and visionaries or advisors for the lab. Through envisioning, defining, and designing, we hope to launch a financial mechanism that's mission centers girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth of color. This financial mechanism will start to feed into girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth and their communities. We appreciate and honor the leadership of girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth, and hope by that giving them the space and by crediting them for their ideas, we can start to imagine an abundant future. So for today's conversation, we have invited 4 young people and leaders in this lab to speak on the work they have been doing and how they imagine an abundant future. I'm going to pass it off to the panelists for introductions. If you can please share your name, your pronouns if you're comfortable, age, where you're calling from, and lastly, the land you reside on. I'm going to first pass it over to you, Savanna.
Hey, my name is Savanna. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm currently located in Bronx, New York, and I reside on Lenape land.
Thank you, Savanna. Passing it to you, Kamariah.
Hi, my name is Kamariah. My pronouns are she, her. I am 19 years old. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and the land acknowledgement that I have is Munsi Lenape.
Hi, my name is Kennedy McDaniel. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, which means I reside on Susquehannock and Piscataway unceded lands, and I'm 25 years old.
Hi, my name is Mahoro Amani. I use any pronouns. I currently reside in Miami on Taino land, and I'm 16 years old.
Thank you all for your introductions and being part of this panel. My first question is a question that's at the core of Future Economy Lab. What does abundance mean to you? Anyone can hop in.
Abundance means to me an increase an increase in resources. If we're thinking of for young people, specifically young females of color and non-conforming females and femmes.
Abundance to me is to look around my life and not see any discontent or displeasure. And even in, hardships, I know that I am like surrounded by good, and knowing that I can, reach out at any moment in time, that is abundance to me.
To me, abundance is having more than enough and not just thriving or getting by, or not just surviving or getting by, but you're thriving and you're living life to the fullest potential, your fullest human potential. So when I think of abundance, I think that anyone can be born on this earth and have everything that they need to thrive and to live to their greatest potential.
To me, abundance means to stay mentally healthy and to provide more resources to yourself and in the world, and providing yourself with love and also maintaining your relationships in life. Abundance also means to have more opportunities provided to yourself and taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I really echo what you all said about abundance, specifically thinking about how abundance really feeds into resources and having an increase in resources, as Savanna said, but also being able to thrive and know that you and the people around you are supported mentally, physically, financially. So we need to increase investments in Black girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth. But I want to ask you more widely, when we talk about resources, I'm obviously thinking about the Future Economy Lab. So can you all share why you joined the Future Economy Lab in the first place?
I had previous experience doing direct service work in my community, and also work as a human-centered design specialist. But I hadn't had the opportunity to like design and think and imagine and co-create with Black girls and gender expansive youth across the country. And so I thought it would just be an incredible opportunity to go from working and designing on a local level to, just having like a moment to collectively share, and learn and grow with others across the country who have similar experiences.
I joined the Future Economy Lab because I grew up around a lot of spaces where I could be around like-minded people. And after I moved, it was very difficult to find those spaces again because, I moved away from Miami and then I moved back. But I'd already lost a lot of those connections. And knowing that there's a group of people who are, working towards the same goals as I am, which is to change the world for, Black and of color young femmes and girls. It's a really amazing thing to know I have that to lean on. And even if, it's not a daily meet, it's still like knowing that there's 40 people out there who are, living the same ideals and the same philosophy that I am.
I joined. Oh, you can go.
Adding on to what both Kennedy and Mahoro said, you guys, the Future Economy Lab offers a space that we don't have very many of, like to be comfortable and to be safe. And also, Kennedy had mentioned the fact that we get to collaborate with females all across the country. And it's interesting to see different perspectives because in different states, there are different like experiences. That's why I joined, because I want to also pave the way for the future females, future girls and non-binary females.
I joined the Future Economy Lab because I wanted to have an experience of learning more about how Black girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth of color can invest in the future and about how we should be included in the economy and should have more opportunities provided to us.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing why you joined the Future Economy Lab. I'm hoping that we are really feeding into what you want to learn and what you want to experience in the lab. Savanna, you mentioned the importance of feeling comfortable and safe in a space. I'm wondering if you can talk more about mentorship as an important piece of feeling comfortable and safe, and what does mentorship mean to you?
Mentorship means to me, it doesn't even have to be one person leading another. It could be one person leading a whole group of people, similar to leadership. But mentorship is more focused on values to me and teaching somebody how to go on about life and go through life and the importance of it in terms of feeling safe is like a mentor will teach you that if life doesn't go the way that you want it to go, it's okay. It's okay for you to not feel like you fit in everywhere. It's okay for you to fail a few times before you get back up and are successful. It's okay to fight for what you want to do. Like a mentor teaches you that like you could be you. Don't worry about what other people think.
Yeah, I think the knowledge of you can be you is something that is so important for Black girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth in particular to hear, especially from people who are their peers, people who are mentors, and everyone in their community to kind of shout from the rooftops. The next question I have is related to the collective vision that you all created in the process of the Future Economy Lab. I'll read this vision out loud to y'all twice. And then my general question is, what stands out about this vision to you? So the vision that you all created is an abundant future is where we are consistently thriving in a tranquil world, surrounded by a sustainable society built on communal love reimagined that is inclusive of all of us and our cultures. I'm going to run that back. An abundant future is where we are consistently thriving in a tranquil world, surrounded by a sustainable society built on communal love reimagined that is inclusive of all of us and our cultures. So within this, what is a phrase that you like and why do you like it? What does this vision mean to you?
For me, the first thing that stood out to me was communal love reimagined, because my mother, she raised me with about 700 aunties and 7,000 cousins. And it was just the absolute most perfect way that I could imagine being raised. And I think it is so important to have communal love and to have a community in general, and to reimagine communal love to fit it to the idea of the entire world, where it can include Black girls and girls of color and femmes of color and just people of color in general, really. It's exactly how I grew up, and I really wish that more people could grow up that way, and that I hope that the work that everyone is doing in spaces like these creates a world where we can have communal love throughout everywhere with no one excluded.
Yeah, it definitely stands out to me as well. And I definitely want to give a shout out to Kennedy and pass it over to you to speak more about communal love.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Mahoro's point. And just growing up, in loving environments, having examples of love and community being shown to you, it really does make a difference. And it shows that communal love does exist. We just need to cultivate it more in all the ways throughout not just our communities, but across the globe. And I know when we originally were kind of going through this experience of all of us putting our thoughts together and our vision and coming up with this, we thought of love reimagined Because a lot of times we think about love in like a romantic sense, or even how you love your friends and your family, but not necessarily about how we can cultivate that love and extend it towards our communities and through our communities. And I think about our ancestor Bell Hooks, and how she taught us that love is a combination of care, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, respect, and trust. And thinking of that as love in action, not a feeling, and how we can extend that through our communities. I think if we all committed to living and working with a love ethic, I think that could get us really close to our vision of an abundant future for all.
A part of the vision that stood out to me is inclusive of all of us and all and our cultures. That stood out to me because once upon a time there was no inclusivity. People didn't understand intersectionality. People didn't understand that there wasn't only one race, there wasn't only one superior gender, there wasn't just one gender at all. And there are a lot of cultures and individuals who look all different shapes, colors, and yeah, it's good to include them because it prevents things like erasure, and it helps people know their roots because they won't be afraid to be who they are and represent their culture. Their parents won't be afraid to represent who they are, tell them who they are. They won't be afraid to tell their child to speak up about who they are in fear that somebody may like take it the wrong way just because they want to be who they are and they don't agree with who that child or who that person is. So yeah.
Something that stands out about this vision to me is the phrase communal love reimagined, because it could describe as showing love for the community and to the members of the community. And I think that this vision means that an abundant future allows people in the community to survive in a world that is relaxing and calm, and allows people to be surrounded with a society that is peaceful.
Yeah, Kamariah, what you just spoke to about a peaceful society also stands out right at the top of the vision that you all created about consistently thriving in a tranquil world. I really think, especially bringing in bell hooks and intersectionality, Kimberly Crenshaw into this space, really just emphasizes the Black girls, femmes, gender expansive youth, and our leaders and ancestors that we all like walk in the path in. Kamariah, I know you're interested in starting your own nonprofit. So I was wondering if you can tell me more about this dream.
I'm interested in starting my own nonprofit because I want to help myself start businesses and join the community where I can promote my business and earn income from that. And to also communicate with people about my business.
Yeah, I'm wondering what type of business are you interested in diving into, if you've thought about that already?
So far, I'm interested in doing hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like braiding.
Yeah. I could talk to you a lot about businesses around hair braiding and everything like that. I did my thesis on it, so would love to talk to you more about hair braiding as a business endeavor and the type of economies that Black women specifically have created around hair braiding. So definitely gonna pop in offline about that. I want to ask you all, this week is about celebrating arts and activism, innovation, and creativity. So, what is your connection to arts and activism, or arts or activism?
Well, I attend an art school, so I, incorporate arts into my daily life. I'm currently a chorus student and a creative writing student, so I sing and I write. And singing is, we do more classical music, so I wouldn't say there's much activism in that, but I think writing is one of the most powerful tools in activism in general. Writing anything in Tupac, Assata Shakur, they use their writing to get out everything that they, needed to say to the world, and it worked. They had a huge impact. People write letters from prison. Um, Writing is just one of the most powerful tools in general. And as much as I have not yet dived into, getting published or getting my writing out there, I definitely do write a lot about the Black experience and how it affects um, my daily life. And I cannot wait to be the person writing books about how we can move forward as a people with inclusion. My connection to activism is I'm a part of a youth organization where I fight against the school to prison pipeline, which is, it's basically the criminalization of young colored children or teens. And it's like where the DOE makes schools or police make schools feel like they're starting to become jails. There isn't enough, I don't know the word for it exactly, but for example, if a student were to do something bad, they would hop right to detention or suspending them rather than trying to see what the issue is and trying to help them prevent these actions again. Um, and yeah, we're fighting around getting metal detectors out of schools because that's one of the main ways that the police or school safety agents criminalize young colored kids, because they find something that would be sharp, but they wouldn't think it was a weapon, but the school safety agent will classify it as a weapon. That's the only reason why metal detectors are still in schools. And yeah, there are a lack of counselors and school safety, counselors in schools, and there are too many school safety agents. And I don't have a direct connection to arts, but I feel like where I come from is my connection to arts, because there are plenty of rappers and singers who have come from New York and they got where they are now. Like they started where I am and they got where they are now. And they have the ability to speak their truth through their music. I feel like that's my connection. The fact that I come from the same place that they do.
I love that. Well, I would say my connection, one, I see so much overlap between arts and activism. Um, that's part of why I love living in Baltimore, is because I think so many people are doing such incredible work using arts and using their creativity. And so as far as the art side, like I do collages, graphic design. I went to an arts high school, so I grew up dancing all my life, and really just have an appreciation for arts and being creative. I think every Black person is naturally a creator, whatever that medium is, whether it's in food, whether it's with braids, whether it's hair, STEM, technology, music, like whatever, like we are innovators and creators. So I think it's only natural that we allow ourselves that time and space to do that.
Um, My connection to art is that I color and draw, and I'm interested in creating artwork. I have joined art classes and created some artwork, such as paintings and drawings on canvas. I also drew artwork based off of nature and portraits of myself and painted them with acrylic paint.
Thank you all for speaking to that. My next question also goes with the theme. I'm wondering what innovation looks like for you and your community.
For me, innovation is about adding value. So it doesn't have to be like a brand new idea or something that has never been thought of before, but something that is meeting people's needs, something that's helping people that just wasn't there before or wasn't imagined or created before. And I also think when it comes to innovation, it's like it has to evolve to meet the needs of the community when we talk about innovating in communities. So I worked at the Greenmount West Community Center for almost 3 years, and like we were consistently adapting and evolving our programming, what we provided to the community, the people we worked with youth and then expanded to seniors when we saw that need was there. Like there were so many times we just had to innovate and adapt and evolve because our communities adapt and evolve. And so we tried to do a lot of different innovative projects to make sure we were meeting that changing need. So like one time we had like a summer wash and fold event. A lot of people in the community didn't have laundry in their homes. So we brought a trailer of washers and dryers to our community center, grassroots fundraise the whole thing, and had community members come in. Like it was a joyous event and they got their laundry done for free for like 2 weeks. So that's just something that comes to my mind when I think of an innovative community initiative I've been a part of.
In my community, for me, innovation looks like making a change to your surroundings and helping make a better future for the world. Innovation is making a change to help people in the community and by communicating with others to help them out. Innovation is making a change to the community and making benefits to help the community.
Speaking of innovation and helping the community, I want to ask you, Kennedy, about how you established and created Black Scene. First, speaking to what Black Scene is, and then what role you're hoping it plays in this community.
Sure. Black Scene is a zine that I created. It started in 2016 and I'm now on the 3rd edition. So it's self-published works of my writing, different collages, works from authors that I admire, poetry, and also sometimes work from artists in my community as well. And so it's been a great way for me as a creative to just process the world around me. Again, Black Scene, it started as a zine for Black activists and allies in 2016 during a really difficult time. And so I'm really proud of how it's developed from, having a couple of submissions to then, expanding in my 2nd edition and having, I think, over like almost 10 artists and writers and creatives from Baltimore City submit their work and be a part of it. And they have all served as fundraising mechanisms. So the 2nd edition raised funds for a nonprofit that I really believe in called Mom Cares Baltimore, and they support Black mothers and birthing persons to help with, the Black maternal mortality rates that are so concerning. So to see that group doing such incredible work, I wanted to support them. So all the funds from the zine supported Mom Cares that year. And this year, we raised funds for the Greenmount West Community Center, and that was also really successful. So I'm just excited to see how the zine develops over time and how it can evolve with the community too.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see the zine, and it's amazing that you're using the zine as a fundraising effort. It's definitely a community-based approach. So yeah, excited to see it. And Mahoro, I'm also excited to read whatever writing you want to share. I'm gonna also ask you, Mahoro, you mentioned wanting to change the world for Black girls, femmes, and gender-expansive youth. Can you give us more of an image of the future that you are working towards?
Of course. So I'll start with like a little anecdote. So I recently gained a sister in my life, and it has changed, I think, the way that I see the world in like substantial ways. She grew up very differently than I did. And when I introduced her into the world that I grew up in, which is one full of activism and growth and change and, surrounded by Black excellence, like watching her be so, divulged in that and watching how it changes her perception of the world, it just showed me how many Black femmes are missing out on that opportunity. And I think in my ideal world, the one that I'm working toward every day, everyone gets that chance, the chance to be around the people who are going to inspire them to be their best selves and not the ones who are going to oppress them into being what fits the narrative that is held to them best. So I wouldn't say that I have like, an exact idea of what it is, but for me, it just means to have a place where every Black femme can experience abundance and experience that happiness and that Black excellence in a way that benefits them the most.
Yeah, thank you so much for speaking and honestly offering the addition of you getting a new sister. That's really lovely. And I'm so excited that you got to show your sister more of your world as well. I do want to mention that question came from people watching this right now, dropping in questions live. So if you have more questions, please feel free to add them. I want to also speak to a piece of the collective vision that y'all created that really explains more of what you were thinking. So when asking what did the collective vision mean, you all shared, we have peace of mind, peace in society, and can be fearless, where justice and equity has been achieved through reparations and shifting power to the people, and we feel healed. And everyone is seen and respects each other for generations to come. That's piece about reparations and shifting powers is what I want to ask you all about. What is the importance of reparations and shifting power in the process of healing?
I would just say I think there's a lot we can do as far as self-healing, like internally, healing within our families, healing within our communities. But unless there's like an acknowledgement of inequities past and present, and not just an acknowledgement, but like a material acknowledgement, then I don't know that we'll get to a fully healed future without that support. Like when I say acknowledgement, I mean federal government, local government acknowledging like, wow, this country, the United States, has really been built inequitably. How can we reinvest in these communities to make things equal, to create healing, and then investing in those communities financially. But so I think there's so much we can do to heal as our communities internally, but I also think that acknowledgement and that reparations, like they go hand in hand, and that has to be done, like from my perspective, like through the government.
I think building off of what Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Reparations and shifting power is important because reparations allow for the people who have been harmed or hurt to understand and see that the harmer or the person who hurt them recognizes the fact that they have went through a certain kind of trauma, and shifting power allows the individuals who are harmed or hurt, in this case, people of color, to take back what they lost, take back the power that they deserve, give them, I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it allows them to take back what they lost and give them the power to make decisions for themselves to prevent people or people of color in the future from being harmed or hurt in the same way that they were.
Going back to what Kennedy said about acknowledgement, I think that not only acknowledgement, but accountability on the part of the government and the part of white people in general. Because, you know, a lot of, and my personal experience, at least I'm sure you guys have all heard this too, you know, white people are always trying to poke holes in something and, you know, talk about how it's not their fault and it's their ancestors and those people are long gone, so we should get over it. But I think that reparations would really open the eyes of a lot of white people and, you know, hold them accountable and make them realize that they're still benefiting off of the decisions that their ancestors made, and know that, you know, it's not just about what they did, it's about what you don't do in your everyday life to, you know, take away some of the pain given to us by your ancestors. So I think that reparations could definitely make people realize, like, oh, wow, okay, so if the government is willing to give people of color money for the damage that they did, then maybe we should start, you know, learning and actually contributing to the solution instead of being part of the problem.
Yeah, that acknowledgement of harm is really important. And I also want to just say shout out to you, Savanna. Your description was perfect as it was. You're describing it perfectly. So I just have a few more questions. The first, I'm wondering, this also is a question from the audience. We heard about the power of art and how it's deeply entwined with activism. So what is a song or artist that is giving you life right now? I honestly wish I could answer this question. I love this question. So shout out to whoever added it. But if one or two people can hop in, what's a song or artist that's giving you life?
I'll say Alien Superstar by Beyonce. And the line, no one in this world can think like me. Like every time I hear it, like that is an affirmation. And it just makes me think of the people in this fellowship too, and just how unique and how creative and how inspiring we all are. So definitely Alien Superstar for me.
For me, I forgot the name of the song, but it's the Little Baby song that he dropped at the peak of the Black Lives Matter movement. And the one line that always speaks to me when I listen to that is every color person ain't dumb and all whites not racist, because society has a habit of trying to categorize people into something because they look like other people who do the same thing, if that makes sense.
It definitely makes sense. And I think not putting people into boxes is a really important way to not step on other people's healing. And yes, Alien Superstar. People on the Grantmakers for Girls of Color and Future Economy Lab team have heard me talk about Beyonce's album too much. So I won't start. I'll actually leave with one final question that I hope you all can speak to. It's kind of a two-parter, so answer whichever one your heart desires. It's an incredible question that we ask for Black Girl Freedom Week, but also more generally in Black Girl Freedom Fund. Why do you think it is important to invest in Black girls, femmes, and gender-expansive youth? Imagine it is 2030 and we have invested $1 billion in Black girls, femmes, and gender-expansive youth. My question is, what does this world look like? Or what would you do with $1 million investment? Where would you put it?
If I had $1 billion investment, I would put it into Black girl councils across the globe where they get distributed the pot of money and they decide this is what we need for our specific community. And they can use that money in each of their communities to bring their vision to life.
If I had $1 billion, I would invest it. Well, I would invest part of it into Black-owned businesses to like prevent them from like shutting down or selling out to white people. And similar to what Kennedy said, I would fund things that are meant for girls of color, like different trips or programs similar to Future Economy Lab, or like hair care kits and the essentials that they need.
Um, if we invested $1 billion in Black girls and gender expansive youth in 2030, the world would have more Black girls joining the economy and being able to invest in themselves in the world. Black girls would also have more opportunities provided to them in the world, and they will be able to start their own businesses, own their own shops, and also have more education opportunities provided to them. Black girls would also be included in society and would have things they need provided to them to survive in the world.
If I had $1 billion to allocate amongst Black girls, I would first invest in Black Girl Joy, because I don't know if that's an actual organization, but I just mean in things that would bring Black girls joy. I've always had this one idea of just having, like the debutante balls, like a Black femme debutante ball. I've always wanted to do one of those in my community because I just think it would be so like beneficial to the community to like be in a space where it's like we're presenting Black girls into their Blackness and into girlhood with a bunch of other Black girls. It would be a beautiful thing. And then I would also give a lot of money to organizations like the one Kennedy was talking about, Mom Cares. I actually, because I'm in Miami, and my mom has a nonprofit called Southern Birth Justice Network, which does the same work. And it's a very important like field. The maternal mortality rates for Black women, the gap between Black and white women is substantial and terrifying, truly. So I think that those two things would be the main ones I would put money into, because I think obviously problems start at birth. So if we could get a lot more mothers out of poverty, we could get a lot more Black girls out of the bad situations that they grow up in a lot of the time. And joy is just obviously something that, kickstarts a lot of innovation and change and growth in communities. So those are two things that I would fund.
Thank you all, and thank you all for talking about what you would give money and funds towards. I said that was the last question. I lied. So it's just related to what you're saying, Mahoro. And also, this is a question that someone popped in. I am going to slightly tweak the question, but can you tell us about an example where you practice love? I'm also going to add joy and practice receiving love and joy in your daily life. And this relates to what you all brought up about communal love reimagined. So love, joy, what are y'all thinking about it?
I consider myself to be an incredibly loving person. Like, I just love love. Like, the clips I have in my hair right now are because my friends gave them to me for Valentine's Day, and I just never took them out because I just love them. I would say in my daily life, this is kind of simple, but I hug my friends every single time I see them. You know, we go to school together, so we see each other in between every period. And I hug my friends every single time. And it just is, it's such a simple thing, but it honestly is so important to me because I'm used to it. So if I don't get it, I feel like I'm going through like friend withdrawal. But also, it's just so important to me to, you know, remember that I have people who I love enough to want to see every 100 minutes, you know. And knowing that they want to see me every 100 minutes really helps me get through my day.
I would say I practice communal love whenever I spend my time serving the community. Or I think just working on community projects, like especially one that you're invested in, you're coming like week after week, giving your time, your energy, resources. Like, I think that's an example of giving love to your community, is showing up for people, whether it's helping someone build their house or whether it's showing up for the youth at the community center, but giving that time and investing your time and making your community stronger. I think that's one practical way of giving communal love in daily life.
For me, I'm a part of a separate program called SIS, similar to Future Accounting Lab in the sense that there are girls of color and non-binary females a part of it, and it's about sisterhood and being an ally to survivors of assault. And they have this little board where we have envelopes pinned to it with our names on it, and it's called the Warm and Fuzzies wall. And we put in little notes for each other to like bring up each other's day and make each other happy. Like it could be something like "you're so pretty today" or "keep your head up." And every time I attend, I put one into somebody else's envelope, or I try to every time I attend.
I show communal love by joining the community and making sure people are okay, and also communicating with them and helping them out. And I receive communal love by meeting new people and getting to learn more about them. And so they can also get to learn more about me too.
Thank you all for answering that additional question about communal love and joy. And thank you also for your leadership and expertise and adding that to Black Girl Freedom Week as well. Thank you for this conversation. And we can close this now and leaving with the idea of love, joy, and also how Black girls, femmes, and gender expansive youth can invest in themselves when you invest with them. Thank you.